All right. Hello, I'm Jacob Kuebler. I'm with Bluestem Financial Advisors, and I'm a board member and member of ACP Planners, the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners. And I'm here with industry guru Michael Kitces, and just here to have a conversation a little bit about financial planning and the future of financial planning.
Excellent.
So good to see you, Michael.
Good to be here. Glad to be here for the conference this year.
So as a lot of our viewers probably know, Michael is an extensive writer. He's got the Nerd's Eye View blog. And so a lot of my questions today are going to be just pulling out of some of the content from the blog as well as some of your speaking. So one of your recent posts was about real-time collaborative planning and how the industry is evolving towards that, which I found very interesting because that's sort of a core philosophy of the ACP process is you do a lot of the work with your client, right? So a lot of our tools, we call them back of the envelope. And it's really just a very simplistic method, and the idea is it's just to facilitate a conversation. But obviously we're trying to move towards a more technological, be more efficient in our practices. And so I just would like to hear from you if you have any thoughts on either new tools that are coming out that can help facilitate that, use technology, be efficient in our practices.
Well, yeah, I'm actually kind of excited about just the direction of technology and where it's going in our world right now. Where I think, frankly, we're finally getting some tools that let us do a little bit more of this with clients. And so, if we date back even 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago in the planning world, first of all, our computers had screens that were this big. Right. The stuff on it didn't look all that good. It's the thought of doing planning live interactively with clients and putting the big screen, the little screen right there in front of them and doing it together where you're all huddled around it just is not practical. So I certainly get why historically we haven't really done a lot with planning software and tools collaborative with clients, which means frankly if we wanted to do anything, we kind of had to do it with sort of a back of the envelope stuff, the infamous yellow pad, and just kind of drawing things out for clients, because those were really those were the tools that we had. The opportunity going forward, though, is watching some of the planning software evolve, where now we're finally getting to a point where we can have some pretty good-looking software that's really built to help drive some of these conversations more, and then we don't have to do it on a little Apple IIe screen. We can do it on a big 60-inch monitor and just do it right there with the clients. Or the version that I'm even most excited about, which is getting the software to the point where we can actually turn around the clients, here, you take the mouse, you drag the little sliders around, you make the plan, whatever you want it to be that seems meaningful for you, and I will be your guide through that, because of course, you can move the slider and see the numbers. You may need someone to help give you a little bit of context, and I think that's what we can do really well as planners. But just to me, it's this complete turnaround from you come to me and I will deign to give you my wisdom and spew forth knowledge at you and then tell you what to do and then expect you to just go off and do it, versus no, let's actually create something together where we try to figure out what your plan should be, or I should say you try to figure out what your plan will be and I will try to be your guide along the way.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the things I think that happens is in the meetings you can have some really good conversations and maybe even explore things either the client hasn't thought of or the advisor gets to a point where the meeting heads in a direction they didn't expect, and the conversations can be really great.
Yep.
But let's be honest, you're meeting with your client for an hour, and then you don't see him again for a couple weeks, couple months, and so there's a lot that can happen in between.
Yep.
The advisor goes away, the client goes away, and things come up or conversations continue to evolve.
Yep.
So have you seen any tools or anything out there that advisors can do to sort of continue that collaborative process outside of the sit-down appointment, like portals or systems like that?
Yeah, again, as I look at kind of the software where it's evolving, I think where we ultimately get to are planning tools that allow us to do this as kind of a continuous collaborative dashboard. So we see a couple of tools now that are coming in that, frankly, for lack of a better term, are basically like mint.com, but built for planners. So we can view it, we can see it too, we can be part of the conversation that's going on with clients. And I think that's ultimately where we go as planners. We get to a point where our planning software allows us to do it and facilitate that, and even in today's environment, that can be anything from Money Guide Pro is working with Yodlee to do these kinds of dashboards. eMoney Advisor has a long history of doing some very good personal financial dashboards for clients. We have kind of separate tools coming in like Guide Financial. So different ways that we can give clients that financial dashboard. And it's not even just to sort of get them oriented around their financial world, although it does that. It becomes the immediate conversation tool. Hey, client calls, hey, something's going on in my financial life we need to talk about. Oh, well, great, let me pull up your dashboard here and we'll look at it together and we can talk through whatever's going on together. And where I ultimately expect it to be in a few more years, I mean, I imagine a scenario like you come into your planning office, you pull up the computer in the morning and like up pops a couple of alerts and it's things like, it's mid-July, your client was going to save $20,000 this year. It's halfway through the year and they've only saved $6,000. So you might want to give them a call because we can track all of this by just looking at the cash flows in their bank accounts and seeing where they're saving. So like those kinds of scenarios where eventually the planning software actually notifies us, clients had a goal, this is where they were going, we'll let you know what that looks like when they're off track. And we see some early planning software now trying to do that. So things like InStream Wealth is a new platform that's out there that's trying to really turn the planning software world around to say, what would it look like if the planning software pushed the information to me, the advisor, instead of I always have to go in and do a plan update to figure out what's going on with my client.
Okay, so the the advisory world is a pretty young profession, and we've seen a lot of evolution from sales orientation to sort of a quantitative, let's maximize here, let's sort of be the economist and find the best, most rational choices and tell the client this is exactly what you should be doing. And now it seems like the software is going to replace a lot of that quantitative analysis. It's going to do it for us, right? So there's this danger, or people are worried about the robo-advisor. So how do you see our roles changing as an advisor going forward, given that part of the quantitative maximization is going towards the technology, and our role may need to change?
To me, what it ultimately means is it shifts us from planning software as a calculator, and the financial planner is basically the keeper of the calculator. Like, come to me and you can use my fancy calculator tool to figure out your situation. And it pushes us instead to something that to me looks more like coach, navigator, co-pilot, counselor, like someone actually help people get through it and move forward and implement and give context to the situation. So it's things like, if a calculator was all we needed to solve problems, like I could solve the world's obesity problem right now. I'd make a website that says eat less, exercise more.
Right.
And then I have a couple of calculator tools where you can figure out exactly how much you have to exercise to lose the amount of weight that you want to lose. Like, this is math, we can do it pretty easily, we know how the science works. And if I actually made a website that does that, I think we'd all collectively agree this would have no actual impact on the world obesity problem.
Right.
Because they're not problems of information, they're problems of execution, they're problems of behavior change. Now, if you don't know the information, you have no idea how to change your behavior. So you do need the calculators, you do need the tools, or you don't know how to get where you're going. But problems certainly around weight loss and problems around most behavior change, I think this certainly includes most of our money challenges, they're not problems of information. Ultimately, they're problems of execution and behavior. And so to me, that means planning will have to shift in that direction. We need to become the people that help clients actually execute, like really help clients actually execute these goals.
Right.
And I think you're going to increasingly see a lot of our focus as planners, even what we learn, what we educate about, what we learn to do better, to say we're good planners, is about how good are you at getting your clients to actually implement their goals. For the past 10 years, it was like, how good are you at giving them information about the right answers?
Right.
Now, to me, that's not really enough. We're going to move past that, because the calculator can give them the answers, and the calculators will be online.
Right.
But what gets them forward to act on it, I think that's our opportunity as planners. And frankly, that's part of my, I guess, a little bit of my bias towards I'm a big fan of financial planning as an ongoing relationship for that reason as well, because behavior change rarely really happens in a permanent, sustained way. It's like, I came in your office once and I had such an awesome hour meeting that it changed my life.
Right.
Every now and then that happens for someone. Most of the time, like, they need a little more ongoing coaching, they need a little more ongoing assistance.
Right.
And so to me, the opportunity is still around planning as a relationship, but I dream of a world where we get to a point where we actually track things like, on average, how many days is it from when you provide a recommendation to a client until they implement it?
Right.
And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people would actually be disturbed if they tracked that right now and saw what that really looks like. Hey, I gave the client the information. If they don't do it, it's their fault. And I think that's going to shift a little, and it's going to become, if you give the clients a recommendation, they don't do it, some of that might become our responsibility as practitioners because we didn't do what we need to do to get them to change that behavior.
Right. So it's no longer going to be enough that you gave them the right answer, but you actually need to affect change.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to from the client as well, right? Like, I'll pay a little bit of money to get some information. I'll pay a lot of money if you can change my life.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, that's frankly, that's where the value proposition is anyways for us.
Right. And so how do you see advisor education right now is very focused on the quantitative, which I think is going to still be important because you got to understand the black box, the numbers that are going in and coming out.
Yeah, like if you don't actually know the information part, you can't do the behavior change properly. Or like, you'll help people change their behavior, but you'll do it out of sheer ignorance and may or may not get them to the thing that was actually going to improve their situation. You'll just like change their behavior in a random direction.
Right.
So,
how do you think advisors need to get that skill set? Does it need to be in a formal education system? Does that need to change? Are there other ways?
To me, I think the long-term vision of it is, I would expect to see classes on essentially psychology and behavior change it becoming part of the CFP curriculum. I mean, like if I look 5 to 10 years down the road, I think that's where we ultimately get. And like we've seen the start of it. Although it's not part of the educational program, the continuing education topic list for CFP-CE now does include client trust and communication topics. So we are kind of slowly moving ourselves in that direction. Now it'll be slow to make it into the things like the topic list for the CFP, because the reality is the way CFP educational curriculum done is they look at what practitioners are doing. And when it is commonly done, it becomes part of the educational curriculum going forward. That's the whole process of a job task analysis and how it's done. So the reality is, I think the way it happens first is leading organizations that want to figure out how to do this and take it seriously are going to build their own content, curriculum, tools, whatever it is, and it has to filter into practice on its own. And even when I look back 10 or 15 years ago, like that's how Monte Carlo came into being as a common tool for a lot of practitioners. It wasn't the CFP board one day said, this is a really good thing that's better than doing straight line projections. You all should use this now. It was someone wrote it in a journal of financial planning. People started adopting it. Some software tools came forth to let us do it better. It became more widely practiced, and then it made it into our body of knowledge. And so I think eventually that's where we go with kind of the behavioral finance, behavior change aspects of financial planning. I think really like the burden is on us as practitioners to figure out how to start doing this, and the ones who are there first are going to be the ones that lead it.
Okay, so I'd sort of like to shift the conversation a little bit. So on the same topic of affecting the organization or the industry of financial planning, you recently wrote a little bit of criticism about the FPA and their future and their vision, and so. To borrow some terminology from Linda Lights, who's the former chair of NATFA and also an ACP member, she sort of calls FPA it's like the community that she lives in, right? So you're sort of loosely connected to everybody in the FPA because you all have a similar sort of, just based on geography or in our case, sort of our profession, we're all trying to go in the same direction.
Amen.
Whereas she calls ACP, it's her immediate family. It's the people that she really connects with, and because the ACP group is so homogeneous, everybody's doing financial planning in a very similar way. It's just really close connections. But at the same time, groups like ACP and Garrett Planning and even NATFA and XY Planning Network, we're all very small, and so it's really hard for us to make any real change in an industry of tens of thousands. So, what do you see the future of, or how can NATFA and ACP and XY, how can we influence the industry?
So to me, like the direction of it overall, I really do expect we're going to see this increasingly function at two levels, and like you kind of put it in good terms. So there's sort of there's the high level community, there's sort of like the professional organization for which I'm involved. And then there are more focused niche communities around, the particular thing that I do, the particular business model that I use, the particular clientele that I serve. So, we all kind of craft it in slightly different manners, but to me, like ACP, XY Planning Network, Garrett Planning Network are all good examples of that. I've actually given them a name now. I call them financial planning platforms. So we've had like asset management platforms as the industry was asset-centric. As we go more and more financial planning-centric, I think we're going to see more and more financial planning platforms of this nature begin to emerge and come forth. And the caveat, as you noted, is they can be wonderful communities that can be incredibly supportive of their planners, but they are going to tend to be smaller groups. They're not necessarily going to be the like, yes, we can change the entire industry, all one or two or 300 of us, when there's 300,000 financial advisors out there. So frankly, like to me, it means you are involved in both. It means you are involved in your group community that supports your practice and your business and your success and your change for clients, and you're involved in a higher level organization that's trying to push that collective profession forward that you are involved in. And I mean, frankly, how do you affect change? Kind of from a small organization to some of the larger ones. To me, like you volunteer, you get involved. You become part of committees. You become part of leadership. You take on roles. Like if you want to see change happen, you have to be part of it. It's sort of always been a guiding belief for me, which is why I'm probably involved with way too many volunteer groups and associations. But like that's the opportunity. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to see the change, you have to be part of it.
Okay, excellent words to end on. So you heard it directly from Michael. Get involved.
Get involved, please.
Well, thank you for being here and taking the time to sit down with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.